At the time of recording this, we are coming up on the end of the Fabian fusion, so if you come over to this tab here, you might still have him available to fuse. I did actually manage to pick up my Fabian earlier today along with the Champion Chase tournament that's going on, so I kind of doubled down on the rewards there, which is pretty awesome. So I have him. He's slowly going to be getting mastered out inside the Minotaur's Labyrinth, and then I'll be building him out and doing a showcase at some point in the future. I could, of course, use gems to get his masteries up quicker, but realistically, I don't have any sort of, awakening for him or anything like that, so, it's not a high priority. But that being said, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to get potentially millions of extra silver on your account through a strategy that no one is really talking about, and this is especially important because every time we have a fusion that comes by, or every time we have some sort of a limited champion, oftentimes it involves artifact enhancement. So you'll see that we have a gear enhancement event here where you have to go through and get one of these rares if you weren't lucky enough to pull them, if you didn't get the epic from the event, etc. So silver is always something that we're struggling to get. I, of course, am a late game player who's beating up basically every boss inside the game currently without issue, farming City of Centranos quite regularly, all that sort of good stuff, right? And you can see that I'm down to 2.53 million silver. So certainly hurting for it a bit there. And if you want to avoid going into the shop and buying some of these ridiculous packs where they give you like 7 million silver for 30 bucks, you're probably going to want to follow the strategies that I have in mind today. So, of course, one of the things that you can do first is you can come in here and just sell artifacts that you don't need, right? Artifacts and accessories that you don't need. Go through here, filter out what's not used on your account, what you no longer have a use case for, and this is kind of the stuff that everybody talks about. But notably, and there will be tips coming up here that essentially have not been discussed on YouTube before, at least not at length as far as I'm aware. Notably you'll have these sets up here like life, offense, defense, critical rate, crit damage, accuracy, all that sort of stuff. You can see that I have very few gear pieces from it because if we scroll down, these particular gear sets have been so power crept by other ones, like for example perception. Resilience is just a better defense or a better life set, right? You have all these other sets that are just so much more incredibly stronger that you don't necessarily need to keep those base sets anymore. So you can go through here and cleanse this. A big one that you can take a look at as well is going to be accessories. So especially now that we have so many farmable accessory types like stone skin and protection as well as reaction, which we can't really farm anymore as far as I'm aware. But we also have pinpoint that we are farming, merciless and blood shield and supersonic and all that stuff, right? There's so many different sets that we can farm. I have something in my eye apparently. This is very annoying, but there's so many things that you can get that you don't necessarily need your basic accessories anymore unless they've rolled really well. So for example, this particular piece here might be a sell for me at some point, right? Because it didn't roll particularly well. So accessories are another huge place to get silver. Accessories, as you can see, sell for a lot of silver as well. So I was 138,000 on that one particular ring, and you can see just how quickly you can rack up over 1 million silver quite easily, right? Almost 2 million silver just by selling my Shadowkin accessories. And you can really combine this with, for example, any sort of spider tournaments or those things that might be going on, because the silver that you get from there is just so worth it, right? So the actual energy to silver return is worth it. Now, another couple things that we can talk about. So if we go over here to relics, first of all, we obviously have the relics themselves, which you can't really sell for silver. And then you also have these gemstones that you can't sell for silver, right? So inside the thumbnail, you probably seen that it said something was selected 8,000 times, and I was getting like 15 million silver for that. So what was it in the thumbnail? Well, the secret sauce that nobody's really talking about is glyphs, right? If you are a late game account such as me, you're going to have hundreds, potentially thousands of different glyph types sitting here, right? So I have 600 4-star accuracy glyphs, which are not getting used on anyone. I have 562 4-star HP glyphs that are not getting used on anyone. And the issue with these lower level glyphs is I'm not using 1, 2, 3, or 4-star gear on champions anymore. It's always going to be 5 or 6-star gear. So I'm not necessarily, like if I show you this, right? If I go to a piece of gear that can take a glyph, So I have these pieces, or well, let's find something that hasn't been glyphed, just so it's a better example, right? So let's say these gloves, if I want to glyph them. I have 181 5-star accuracy glyphs, which are going to give me between 5 and 10 accuracy. Does it make sense for me to instead select the 651 4-star accuracy glyphs? I'm not going to be using 181 glyphs at any point, maybe ever, on my account, realistically, right? So you can see that these lower star tier glyphs really start to stack up, and the only exception to that being is really the speed glyphs, because obviously you can see I'm very low on the 5 and 6-star speed glyphs, and these seem to have low drop rates. So yeah, the speed glyphs are a lot more needed, especially at 4-star, right? You can also very much make use of them at 1-star for speed tuning certain compositions if you need very particular speeds. But if we come in here and if we select sell, and if I go to these, let's say 4-star HP percentage glyphs, select all of them, that's 1.1 million silver that I acquire for selling that one set of glyphs. And it's not like these glyphs are hard to get either, right? You essentially just go through as normal. You farm faction wars. Certainly we're going to be having hard faction wars coming out soon, where they mentioned that they're introducing new glyphs as well. So as part of that, I kind of thought, hey, maybe it's a good idea to go through and start reviewing some of the rewards that we get, and certainly also my team compositions, which is another video that I'm going to be making at some point here in the future. If I look at flat HP, right, that gives me another, what, like 400k in terms of silver. We look at attack percentage, and again, it's very important to note that that gives me like over 1 million right there as well, right? It's very important to note that I'm not going to be using 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, or 1-star attack percentage glyphs on really anyone. Same thing with HP percents, right? Even if I'm using a champion inside Faction Wars, City of Centranos, whatever piece of just throwaway garbage content that I don't really worry about too much and I just want to be able to farm it consistently, I'm going to be using, at this point in my account, 5 or 6-star gear on that particular champion. So why would I use these lower level glyphs when I have something else available, right? So even for the HP percent, I still have 88 5-star glyphs available, which if I were to sell those, gives me like an extra, what did that say, like 200k or something like that there? Nothing too crazy, but again, this really starts to add up, and realistically, this could be the difference between you being able to get a fusion like Fabian, or, you know, having to skip the fusion, right? So if I go through on my account, and if I select simply 4-star and lower glyphs, you're going to really start to see just how much silver that this can add up to, right? And the average player isn't going to be using these glyphs really either. You need higher star glyphs. Like, for example, the 1-star accuracy glyphs are going to give you 1 to 2 stars worth of accuracy. So if you're, 1 to 2 points of accuracy. So if you're in the first, like, you know, whatever phase of the game, and I can probably come in here and sell my 3-star speed glyphs as well, don't really need those. So this is an extra 7 million silver that I'm able to get without an issue, and nobody really talks about this, right? So as I was saying, though, if you're in like the very start of the game, this 1 to 2 accuracy could potentially help, right? But realistically, even for pushing dungeons, each level of that dungeon is going to require roughly 10 accuracy. So we have 9 gear pieces. You can't get accuracy as a substat on all of them, but say, for example, you can. These 1-star glyphs, at worst, are only going to give you plus 9 accuracy. At best, they're going to give you, what, plus 18 accuracy, right? So it's not incredibly strong to have those 1-star glyphs on your gear, so all of that can be sold. Same thing with defense glyphs, for example, right? Like having an extra 4 to 5 defense on your champion. This shouldn't be controversial, but I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to say something. 5 defense on your champion is not going to make the difference between whether or not you beat content, and even if it does make the difference, it's not going to be enough to be a consistent difference to allow you to beat that content, right? So it certainly can add up, and I am going to practice what I preach here and go ahead and sell these 4,900 glyphs. So as you can see, I just went from like just over 2 million silver to now almost 10 million silver, just like that. And if I want to come in here and do a little bit more artifact enhancement to get myself the Ancient Shard, or perhaps the Superior Extract, that is certainly something that I am able to do now. So I hope this was maybe just kind of a reminder to you guys that, you know, if you have been farming your Faction Wars, and certainly view this as well as like just a reminder how important it is to farm Faction Wars, right? Because even, you know, very end of the game at, you know, stages 20, 21, you're still going to be getting 4 to 6-star glyphs. So obviously the 5 and the 6 stars are very worth it, but then the 4 stars are not so worth it. And on top of that, you're also getting the materials from Faction Wars to craft Resilience and Perception sets. Resilience is just straight up like, you know, silver, right? I don't use resilience for really anything. It's basically just auto sell according to my sell file, so it's just simply silver anytime I craft this. Perception is still a very viable late game set. So faction wars are so incredibly useful, and I do think that the glyph side of it specifically is something that players should look at selling, because I have so damn many of these things. Even still, if I'm trying to glyph out certain things, like, when am I ever going to use 261 5-star attack glyphs? It just doesn't happen, because 99% of the artifacts that I put on my attack champions are 6-star, in which case I'm going to use the 6-star glyphs anyways, right? Because the capacity on that is 3% higher, so it just makes sense to get the better stats. When am I going to use 238 5-star flat attack glyphs, right? Maybe never. Probably never. So make sure you come through, cleanse that out. If you're struggling to complete an artifact enhancement, this could be the difference maker for you. That being said, as always, I am putting out raid content. I do have my Discord link down in the description below as well, so if you want to get in there and share some strategies, ask some questions, we'd be very happy to have you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.